Joining us now to pay tribute to the late John Moeti is a teammate from Pirates as well as Bafana Bafana, Helman Mkhalele. A very good evening. Welcome to Newzroom Afrika on what is a sad day for South African football.
Good evening, Valen, and good evening to your viewers as well. Yes, indeed, it is a sad day, for South African football. When I heard the news of the passing of the legend John Moeti, I was really shocked, because I wasn't expecting to happen so soon, even though we all know that one day we all pass away, So it was indeed a shocking day for me.
So many people have remembered him as a gentleman. You said he was a silent killer who preferred to do his talking on the field of play. Can you remember the first time that you met him and what your impression of him was?
Valen, I remember vividly when we first met at Orlando Pirates. I used to see him when he was playing for Dynamos. But when we met at Orlando Pirates, we had common thing between me and him and other former players from Orlando Pirates. But between me and him, we were coming from the team that were relegated. That was Orlando Pirates and Dynamos. Yeah. So when Dr. Kwasa brought us to Orlando Pirates, so our start at Orlando Pirates, it wasn't good. And I still remember we lost 4 games. Actually, we drew. And we drew 6 games and lost 1 game against Mamelodi Sundowns. Morocco Swallows. So during that moment, because we were staying in the same apartment, we used to have a chat, saying that, hey man, what can we do to change the situation at Pirates? Because the fans were starting to complain, and in the team also we're starting to have, those squabbles, people blaming the newcomers blaming, the old players that have been there. But through his leadership, even though they were not visible by then, John would say, what, Mkulu? We used to call each other Mkulu, So he said, what, Mkulu? What we need to do now? We just need to focus on our game and be calm. And then the rest will take care of itself, I couldn't understand him, but later when we started to win games, then I started to understand, what he meant, So that was the kind of a person that he was. And also what I learned from that interaction between myself and him, the person who loved his family, He loved his family, was there for them, So when you see how he led his family, and what he did for us as players, then you could see that he was a true leader.
Can we just double click in that, what he did for other players? In a radio interview about 4 years ago, he shared how he tried to get players together to actually have more rights in the game, and it was something that for the owners of clubs at the time they hadn't been challenged in that way.
What he did, he started even at Orlando Pirates, where he started, to fight for his rights. Yes, each and every player, when you sign for the team, you go there as an individual. But when he started to hear, the concerns of the players within at Orlando Pirates, he started to give lessons or education, to players on how to attend to their individual matters, especially those that are related to the contractual issues, Oh, wow. So that is where it started, He didn't end there at Orlando Pirates. He started now to expand his knowledge by interacting with players that were belonging to other teams. That is why later he joined the union, in order to make sure that the rights of the players are attended to, the rights of the players and the respect that they deserve, are given to them. So that is the kind of the person that he was, He wasn't afraid of confronting, any challenges, that came his way. But the way or the manner he attended to those challenges, he attended them with humility, but with aggression, the aggression that goes with respect, So that is why I believe that he earned the respect because of those qualities that he had.
And do you think him raising these issues when he did has made a lasting difference for the players that currently play professionally in South Africa?
I would say he contributed, because some of the players that were affected by then, some of their issues were resolved, I would say he played his role, even though there are still concerns that needs to be addressed in relation to the players' welfare, But his race, I believe that he ran his race. So it's up to the current players to take the baton and run with it, because I believe that John played his role, in order to address the matters that affects the players,
So I want to speak a little bit about his nickname. Some people call him Dunga after the defensive midfield from Brazil. Others call him Dungi. Can you give us a little bit of background around which nickname it is?
When I first met him, they started to call him Dunga, because Dunga, it's the similar name of the legendary coach and the former player of Brazil, Dunga. So they named after him because of, I would say, John was aggressive, but you couldn't see that he was aggressive, and also the way how he won the ball, as little, as short as he was, but he had a big heart, when he won the ball, he couldn't just, get rid of it, he used it to make sure that it hurts the opponent, that is where we get, or we got, passes from him, I would say intelligent passes from him, that will break the lines, that will help us to create more goal-scoring opportunities. So that is how he earned that nickname, because Dunga, he was also known for doing that, the way he won the ball from the opponents and how he distributed it, it was marvelous, to see him doing it, and when you see your teammate, doing the same thing, then, you just marvel, that is how he earned that nickname, Dunga, or Dungi.
At the time of his passing, he was living in Fourways, and before he got sick, he was working on his Truth Foundation, which uses football to teach children life and leadership skills. He leaves behind his wife, Motsidisi, as well as 5 children. Many people were asking not too long ago what's actually happened to John Moeti, a man that brought so much joy to football fans here in South Africa. He seemed to have taken a big step back from the limelight. Is that something that that John would do, or were you surprised maybe at that after his playing career?
Those are some of the things that, I personally learned from him, that, it's more important to live your life, your normal life and be who you are, So John, he didn't want to be in the forefront, but he believed on doing things, So that is why we didn't see him. But there are greater works that he did behind the scenes, more especially that affects the lives of the other people in a positive way, So that is why we don't see much of him, what he did,
Yeah.
But I would say, for me, he was a true leader, a true leader that believes in doing than making promises, So those are some of the things that I learned from John.
Former teammate, lifelong friend, Helman Mkhalele, sharing his memories of John Moeti. Thank you so much for your time here on Newzroom Afrika. The family have not yet finalized the funeral details, and we will share those with you.